And welcome to the webinar, folks, How to Advertise Your Event. My name is J.R. Gonzalez. I'm going to be your host or your moderator today. And our guest expert, of course, is Tatiana Chamorro. Tatiana is the co-owner of Height Digital in Dallas, and definitely she knows a heck of a lot more about this stuff than I do. Tatiana, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Now, I am doing excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time and joining us on this. We recognize that, in today's world, people are just constantly bombarded by information, but the old days back of newspaper and magazines and billboards, they're kind of gone. The real thing is happening in the digital world, and that's what we're talking about now. And I know there's a lot of folks on this call right now that'll be watching this webinar that are involved in businesses and organizations, and they want to know how to get the word out. So before we get started, Tatiana, can you just give us a little bit of background about yourself and Height Communications or Height Digital and what it does?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be sharing what I've put together. I actually, after finishing my master's in marketing, went on and became a business owner, and we started doing digital marketing with a combination of branding. And I went on to create strategies that are connected to the ROI. And I think that's a big part of what we're going to talk about today, because it's going to be important that any type of strategy that you base it off on metrics that are quantifiable. So our marketing agency actually focuses on a return on investment so that everything can be trackable and quantifiable and impacting your business. That's a little bit about myself. I am also a real estate investor. I'm a mom of two, and I'm originally from Nicaragua, so I am bilingual. If you see any accent here, that's not intentional.
Well, Tatiana, thank you so very much. We're going to go ahead and get started. So with that said, folks, welcome. And of course, this is being brought to you by TAMAC, the Texas Association of Mexican American Chambers of Commerce, in conjunction with Height Digital. So Tati, let's go ahead and get started. I know that you have a slide presentation. You're able to share your screen. So let's go.
Awesome. So let's do it. Can everyone see my screen? Great. Okay, so let's get started. How to advertise for your event. We're going to talk a little bit about understanding the basics of what are the things you need to know before deciding where to advertise and how to start advertising, right? And then once you define that, setting the stage. How do we get started in implementing those strategies? And how does that work? How exactly do we boost a post? How do we pay for social media? What does that look like? And then I'm going to go over the recommended strategy. So we're going to finish this session talking about what I actually recommend. And when I meet with clients, what we actually implement for them. I talked a little bit about myself, so I won't take too long here. I'm a public speaker. I'm an agency owner, and I have a background in both marketing and communications. But let's get to it. I want to start here on just setting the stage about understanding the basics. And I'm going to say, JR, that a lot of times this is where the conversation needs to start, and a lot of times it doesn't. And why is that? There's a misconception between the difference between organic social media and paid social media. So here's a little graph that I created on understanding the difference between one and the other. The most important thing to know for everyone listening today is that organic social media is not entirely connected to an ROI. So that's why when I was starting the conversation, setting those KPIs is going to be important, those key performance indicators, and you're going to see here in the presentation how and why. But essentially, organic social media is when you go on your Facebook page and you post something, when you do a story, when you comment on someone. That is all organic. It is not somewhere where you're actually investing money. It is more of a way in which people find about you and create brand awareness, but doesn't necessarily require any form of investment. Social media organically is, you don't need a budget for it. So if you have absolutely no budget, that's a really good way of starting. It does limit your audience because it will only be showed to those that are following you or liking you. So if you have a page with 10 followers and 8 of those are family members, you are only going to be showing up to them. And that's something that we need to consider here. It is connected to a long-term strategy because it allows for the brand awareness. Social media organically is not a bad thing, but you need to be aware that the connection to it, if you want to have an impact in your event, that is not the way to go. And if you do want to build more brand awareness, then that's a really great direction, right? But it takes a little bit more time. Paid social media, we're going to go about 2 different types of paid social media. but consider paid social media anywhere where you're investing money. There are two types that are going to be here in the next slide, but just to summarize it, you can boost post and you can do paid advertising. And those two things are very different. We're going to dive deep into what is the difference and which one's best. So let's talk about boosting posts. These are the two forms of paid social media or paid advertising, right? So we have the boosting post. Boosting post is anytime you go on your Facebook page, you make a post, and then there's a little thing that says boost post, and then you invest $100, $200, $1,000 into that post being shown into a larger audience. There are some limitation of boosting a post. It is for short timelines because you can have, for example, a 3-day boosting post, and it'll start getting some results. It has some limited adaptability into what you're doing. And so a lot of times you are not able to target in a really in-depth level. So this boosting post is really great if you have a smaller team or if you're not too knowledgeable on paid advertisement, right? If you're not a pro in digital marketing, boosting post is going to be a good solution. It is very easy to set up. I have some slides here that are going to show you how to set it up. But one of the things that I really dislike as a marketer is that you cannot do A/B testing. For those of you that are not familiar with A/B testing, it is one of the crucial parts of paid advertising because it allows you to track what campaign is performing better. So A/B testing, to give you guys an example, is if I am running ads in McAllen and I am targeting, I am a doctor's office and we're targeting women. And the doctor tells me most of our patients are females that are Spanish speakers and between the ages of 30 and 35. We run ads, we do a test targeting exactly that audience. And then we do another one that targets maybe English and Spanish speakers. And we open up the age gap between 25 and 50. And we are going to see which one's responding better. So what I love about A/B testing is that it allows us to understand our audience even more in depth of within the digital marketing landscape. So let's talk about paid advertising. Paid advertising is goal-oriented.
Can I interrupt you for a second, please?
Yes, please.
When it gets back to boosting, and the most familiar form I think a lot of people know is a Facebook boost. But when you actually boost, there's some restrictions Facebook will put on you as depending on the subject matter. Well, correct?
It depends on the industry that you're in. There could be some limitations.
Like political ads or employment type stuff or housing things. I mean, I know there's some restrictions, and then sometimes with some of those restrictions, like a political ad, that a person has to get actually registered or certified by them before they can do anything.
Yeah. So for example, if you're advertising within politics, you actually need to be certified to advertise within that arena. And important to note there is that the account that you are using to actually create those ads is the one that needs to be certified. So if you are hiring a marketing agency and you want to do it under them, then that's the account that needs to be certified. Those are where the ads would be running. But if you want to do it under your own brand name or whatever that looks like, then that is the account that needs to be certified. We actually helped a couple of people go through that process. It takes quite a bit. So consider that if you are advertising within a political arena, there's going to be a process that you're going to have to go through that could take up to 90 days in order for you to be certified.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt, but thank you very much.
No, that's a great question. And actually, I want to include in that this isn't only for boosting posts. That is for any type of paid advertising. So if you are running any type of campaign online and you are in those niches like politics, even real estate, and so on and so forth, the difference here is that if you go into the route of paid social media, which includes boosting or paid advertising, you will need to be certified. You can always do organic and you don't need to be certified for that. But remember that organic has a much limited reach. So going back into the difference between boosting posts and paid advertising is considered anywhere where you have a more targeted approach, where you are able to actually create goals, set a much bigger audience. And by the way, you might be thinking, well, what's the difference between boosting posts and paid advertising within a Facebook platform? So boosting posts, you can do it directly from your Facebook page. Paid advertising, you actually have to go to a business manager account under Facebook. So it's very different. And it is important to know that because a lot of times marketing agencies will tell you, yeah, we're doing advertising, or your marketing team will doing advertising, but what they're really doing is boosting posts. Now, paid advertising also includes Google Ads. That is another form of paid advertising. It could be also ads on LinkedIn, anywhere in which you're investing money to promote the service or business that you're selling. Paid advertising is also trackable and measurable, even more than boosting posts. What I mean by that is that it actually tells you the navigation pattern of what that person did through since the second that ad showed up until they purchased, contacted, or whatever that navigation looked like. And if they didn't purchase, contact, or clicked anywhere where they could contact you, it actually tells you, yeah, this person fell off, right? So we're able to analyze, okay, what are the patterns of people that fall off and why are they falling off, right? So you'll see that it's even more targeted, selective of audiences and locations, and more in depth in terms of strategy. For that reason, we're going to talk a little bit about why is it important to set your KPIs. So KPIs is key performance indicators. And first, before you decide to even move into any form of advertising for an event, I strongly recommend that you determine what a successful form of advertising would be for your event. So I want to give you an example. This is a great example because it tells us the metrics that your marketing team or a marketing agency needs to follow. I want to advertise for my event happening 3 months from now, and I want to gather 200 registrations from online efforts and invest a total of $3,000. This tells a marketing expert everything they need to know. They know the timeline that they should be expecting results. They know how many registrations or what those results should look like. And they also know how much you want to invest. So this already tells them, okay, this is the guideline that we want to follow. This is a stipulated process. Now, one thing that I like to challenge business owners and leaders is to think through the budget. A lot of times we come into advertising for events with just the budget that we allocated randomly. I want to challenge you to determine the cost per acquisition of each person that's going to come to your event. If you are selling an event where the ticket is $5,000 to come, then the cost of acquiring that client can be a little higher, right? If you're selling an event where the ticket is $100 or it's free, maybe the cost to advertise should be lower. And that will also tell us what platform to advertise on. Okay, so a couple of things that we like to do in order to what I call set the stage. First, we got to define the timeline. How far out is this event? Define your budget. How much will you use to advertise? Like I said, consider also the cost per acquisition. And one thing that's important that a lot of times we forget is to consider the lifetime value. Is that person attending these events, are they potentially going to convert into a client? Is there a possibility that we're building trust and then they can also become a client? And if there is, consider elevating the cost or what you want to allocate in the budget, because then there's a possibility of retaining that client long-term in your business. Define the outcome. What would be a successful event? And when I say define the outcome, of course, you need to have the definition of what a successful event for you as a whole would look like. But consider in marketing. If you do any form of marketing, what would be a successful marketing strategy for you? Is it 3 registrations? Is it 10? Is it 200 people attending? Knowing those KPIs or metrics will allow the marketing expert to know how to guide the strategy. And what resources do you have? I want to take a second here because often I meet with leaders and business owners who are open into, they have $10,000 to invest in marketing, but they don't have anyone to actually follow the sequence. A marketing agency is not there to close on the leads that they bring. They're there to generate leads. And if you don't have any set strategy or process for when those leads come, it's going to be very empty because there's no way one person is going to be able to answer the phone or answer 200 emails, right? So there has to be either an understanding of what your resources look like if you have a CRM, or an understanding from your side on what the resources you don't have, to understand that whatever lead flow comes in needs to be something you can take on. Okay, so here is a map that we created on when to implement either organic social media, boosting posts, or paid ads. So you're going to see that each one, I divided it into timeline, budget, and resources. A lot of times when you are having an event that is less than 1 month out, I definitely recommend going with organic social media. If your budget is less than $500, organic social media. If you have a small business with no marketing team, organic social media. What does that mean? That means posting on your Facebook page, Instagram page constantly is a good starting point, especially if you are in any of these brackets, right? Now, one of the things that's important is if you're planning out for an event a year from now, start building that organic social media today. So when you do get closer to that event, you have more than 10 followers. You have people that can reshare, that can comment, that are engaging with your content. And actually, that is the most successful form of advertising, because at the end, organic social media costs nothing. You don't need to invest more than creating the content and posting it. If the event is 1 to 3 months out, then I recommend boosting posts. If the budget is between 500 and 1,500, I recommend also boosting posts. And then also if you have an internal marketing team, or if you have like a CRM or a smaller marketing team, right? Now, this is interesting because a lot of times it depends. And I will say, this is a disclaimer, this varies depending on the location and the industry you're in. To give everyone an example, real estate investors in Dallas, and Dallas at the moment is very, has a high demand for real estate investment opportunities. The average cost to advertise is $3,000 on Google Ads. What does that mean? That is only the cost for them to have ads that show up. And so based on that and the data that we know lives within the industry that that client is at, we tell them, okay, we recommend that we do something else because your budget is not, it's not going to get you anywhere, right? So it's important to consider that. And so what I have seen over the last 4 years of managing marketing strategies is that on average, a $1,500 monthly ad spend is very healthy. That is a really great place to start, and where you can see some results.
Tatiana, I got a question for you.
Yes.
I know that we have a lot of folks here involved with chambers of commerce and other nonprofit organizations that are on the call. So I'm looking at your recommended chart here about boosting. I mean, you can boost. I mean, if you have time and a budget to boost it, you know, that's great. But can you also boost something like last minute, like the last 10 days or 7 days? And would that be very effective?
The key to advertising for an event is being able to plan it out, right? So you'll see here, I have some timelines on when we recommend to start advertising. We'll talk about that a little bit further. At the end of the day, yes, it's effective because it's better than not pushing the event anywhere out, right? But when you are limited in time, the most effective way to get participants into your event is more grassroots marketing, right? The advertising of boosting post is going to limit the ability to target more of like the audience you want to get in the room, but it'll show the ad in different places. So it's not a bad way, but it definitely is not the most effective.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So how to boost on social media. I am going to show you guys the steps on boosting on social media. And we're going to get started with boosting on Facebook. So there's a quick video here that shows you how inside your page, you select the different ad that you want and you do boost post. Sometimes it'll tell you this post can't be boosted. And that could be due to like if you're using any type of music or anything like that. So you select the post that you actually want to boost and it'll show all of these different things. So you'll see, and I have another video here for more of the paid ads instead of boosting, but you'll see that it's much more limited on the type of different audiences and goals. The goals, for example, over here is get more messages, get more engagement. And then if you open here, it's like get more likes, more followers. It's very vague. And that is what I like to call more vanity metrics. Vanity metrics are anything where you can't quantify it into sales or actual heads in the event, right? So like actual people attending the event. However, it still shows, it's still, you get calls, you know, you get leads. It doesn't necessarily translate to sales though. And that's where I like more focusing on the paid advertising side of it. Now you'll see that when you boost the post, it'll ask you for a couple of things. Make sure, and I want to take a second here, make sure that you take advantage of this to frequently ask questions, especially when you're boosting a post. A lot of people forget to add this here, but make sure that you update that with the questions that you get asked the most. And this will populate when people look at the ad and the answer. So if somebody clicks, can I learn more about your business? The answer should be, yeah, you can check out your website here. A lot of people forget to do that. And it really does help with the engagement because it creates a little bit more of a constant communication. You can edit and choose who you want to target here. And then the estimated daily budgets. I also left on the right the steps on how to boost a post. Back here, by the way, is going to be based on your budget, and it'll guide you a little bit through the type of audience and how many people you're going to reach, depending on the budget and how many daily it's going to be added in there. It'll also show you an ad preview, and it'll tell you exactly how it's going to look, how it would show on Instagram. For those of you wondering, Instagram and Facebook are connected. So if you're boosting a post on Facebook or boosting a post on Instagram, it is very likely that it'll interchange between one and the other platform. You can also take off that not enable that so it doesn't show on one or the other, but it is always connected. If you go through the process, at the end, it'll ask you to add your credit card. And that is where you can boost the post on Facebook. It is very simple. You can see that one of the biggest difference that I want to take a second here to talk about between paid advertising and boosting posts is that once you run a boosted post, it runs. It just keeps going until you said that it would stop. You can obviously cancel it, but that's it. You cannot adapt or change the targeting. With paid advertising, you can go in and based on the results, adapt and change different things, either the targeting, the audience, the location, anything like that. So it's a little bit more targeted. Okay, here's boosting a post on Instagram. So you'll see here the example on the video. It takes a little bit to load. It actually happens almost every time. You select the reel. And by the way, on Instagram, I definitely recommend boosting reels, which is videos, over boosting a post than a static image. They usually get more engagement, so that's a great way in which you can do that. You can only select from 3 different types of goals. You can get more profile visits, more website visits, or more messages. One of the things that I recommend is if you are going to opt in for website visits, at your website in your bio, make sure that it's there. Because then if not, you would be promoting more website visits, but it's not clear where people can click. You define your audience. Again, in this example, I created a specific audience in Dallas. We have a workshop happening next week. And so I wanted to target people that are within Dallas that are female leaders or business owners. And so we created that defined audience, and Instagram would tell you a little bit about how the result could potentially be. So you'll see here the estimated reach. And then you select the budget. You can do $11 daily, and then you can select how many days. Very simple to boost a post and make sure that you create that engagement and get your event rolling. So you'll see there, after that, it'll have all of your different characteristics that you selected, and then you can just boost the post. So very simple ways in which you can allow for that larger reach of actual different types of posts and engagements for your event. Now, one thing that I want to mention here, JR, because I remember you and I went through this, is make sure that if you are doing a video, that you're doing it under the reels. Don't upload a video just as a post, upload it as a reel. That's going to allow it to have a much bigger audience and reach. And the second thing is make sure your profile is set up for business. That way you have an even bigger understanding of how people are interacting with your Instagram page.
Okay. Question, Tatiana, as we're looking at this, so like on Instagram, I have an Instagram account. I probably have maybe 5 followers. So if I were to actually, well, maybe a few more than that, but if I were to actually try to boost something using Instagram, it just doesn't go to those folks. It just goes to the whole network out there of people. So is there, as you do on Facebook, is there a selection or target market you can do on Instagram?
You're saying if you're boosting through Facebook, can you also do a targeted approach on Instagram in that same boosted post, or are you saying individually on each?
I'm talking, if you want to go boost something individually on Instagram, can you actually target your market?
So you can do targeted approaches on both platforms when you're boosting. It is much more limited in terms of like, you can go into, for example, on Facebook, when you're doing ads, you can go into interest. Like you can say anyone who is interested in being a business owner, anyone who is interested in real estate, anyone. So it's much more targeted based on the already things that people put in their profiles. When you're doing a boosted post, as far as it goes is, and you'll see it here, it'll go into if it's female or male. You can select the different ages, and then you can select locations. Like, for example, Rockwell, South Lake, Fort Worth. You can do interest, like for example, small business, small, medium enterprise, or women, but it's much more limited in terms of option. It'll give you some options to which you can select interest, and it'll be a little less targeted. So let's go from this just to explain. You have organic social media where you don't pay and there's no targeting. You can actually select this. Then you have boosting posts where you can select the audience, but it'll be much more restricted in terms of how targeted you can be. And then you have paid advertisement where you can go more in depth. Paid advertisement is what I call like the space for digital marketing professionals, which is why it's important to consider where you're at and your resources. If it's only you and you have no knowledge about digital marketing and your budget is limited, start with boosting a post. That's a good solution in that scenario.
Okay, thank you. We're starting to get a couple questions in. We're going to save the questions towards the end, not to interrupt the flow. So, Tati, thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going to get into the most complicated one, which is running an ad on Facebook. And there's also the variation of running an ad on Google. I think I would say level of expertise, if you're starting out, start organic. If you are starting out but a little bit more established business, go into boosting a post. And if you are much more sophisticated in understanding digital marketing or have the budget to hire a marketing team or a marketing agency, running an ad is going to be the best solution. You will see here on the left that it is so much more targeted in terms of what the call to action can be. Like, do you want people to call you? Go to your website, click here, join an event. If you have a link to register to an event, you can add the link. So it's much more targeted and in depth, right? You can do primary text, you can do headlines. You can then connect it to different, even like WhatsApp business, right? Sign up, learn more, book now. And if it's book now, you can add the link. So you'll see that it's so much more specific. And I think this is a great example to understand the difference between one and the other, right? This one's kind of like advertising on steroids. It is important to know that it takes some time for the results to start coming in. But if you are running any type of advertising on Facebook, make sure that you're constantly going in and checking it, because based on the results that it's generating, you should be making adaptations to that ad. So you'll see here on the right, the steps in order for you to do or run an ad on Facebook.
Okay.
The beautiful thing about this too is that it allows you to understand a little bit more the types of results that you would be gathering. Now, on our first webinar, one of the things that we talked about was understanding digital marketing. And I mentioned that the different platforms will give you different results. Facebook ads, what we have seen is it gives you a lot of leads, but the quality is usually very low. Why? That has to do with the fact that when you're on Facebook, you are scrolling through Facebook, but you're not actually looking for a service or product. And so a lot of time, Facebook ads will be shown to people that are not really necessarily looking or searching for what you're selling, which means the quality of the lead is usually lower. When you're looking at things like, for example, Google Ads, it's a little bit easier because people go on Google to search for a service or product. And so if they click on you, they're usually very much interested in what you're selling. So if you're wanting to decide between one and the other, I usually love to go more with Google Ads, but again, it depends on where you're targeting, who you're targeting, and what your budget is, because that will determine how much you should invest. And if your budget is much more limited, then I would not recommend Google Ads because you will not see that return. One thing to note is definitely if you're running an ad on Facebook, it has to go through the ad manager. If you are not using an ad manager, if you don't have access to an ad manager, or if you hire a marketing agency and they tell you, oh, you don't have an ad manager, that means you never actually ran any ads on Facebook. So that's going to be very important.
Okay, so what's an ad manager?
Ad manager is this little icon that you see right there. You can go to business.facebook.com or ads manager, and it'll take you into, it's like a whole other world of Facebook, and it is the site of advertising.
Okay.
Yep. You'll need to have your credit card entered in there. You can select different pages that you can advertise for, so you can have an ad manager for different pages. And it's a little bit more complex, which is why I say if you don't have a marketing agency or a marketing team to support you through this, this might be a little more frustrating if your knowledge in marketing is a little less sophisticated, let's say. Okay, so we're going to talk now about what you need for your event, and this has a lot to do with the different types of form of advertising and the campaigns that we actually provide over the last couple of years so that you can advertise for your event. So first, define the event strategy. We recommend to utilize a combination of print advertising and online advertising for the event. Here's what you need. Select the online platforms. It's going to be important that you decide if you want to be showing up on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. This is going to be based on where you have more followers, because that's where you're going to get the best results. But it's also going to be based on the different platforms where you already have been building an audience. That is why it's so important to either, whether you're advertising for anything or have a budget or not, start building an audience organically on your social media following and understand where your audience, your target audience lives. For example, if you are wanting to target doctors, you're probably going to find them on LinkedIn, not so much on Facebook. But it depends also what type of doctor, right? So understand that audience that you're looking for to identify where you want to start. A lot of people will say, well, I just want to be showing up everywhere. I want to be on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, but my budget is very limited. So what I say is look at where your audience lives, where you have the most followers, and make sure that you capitalize and invest in there so that you can get the biggest return. Define design assets that are needed. This is going to be crucial. We're actually helping a local school here in Dallas with their gala advertising. And one of the first things we did was a consultation over, okay, what type of print advertising are you going to be needing for this event? And if you are doing any form of gala or event or anything like this in the future, make sure that you keep track of that. So the next year you already have a starting point. And this is one of the things that we actually help this school with, because they do this gala every year for the last 25 years, but they have to start from scratch thinking about the different materials that they need. The important thing of this is also that it'll help you guide on where and how to implement these assets. And it'll give you a head start on how much time you need in order to have the best assets by the time that they need to be printed, right? Create a posting schedule. This is going to be the last one, but it's definitely important. We recommend you post every 2 weeks and then every day approaching to the day of the event. So I'll show you here a little bit about each one of these sections. We're going to talk about defining the design assets first, and we're going to talk about the basic marketing materials. So this is what I recommend anyone that's doing an event and advertising. This is the basic. You should always have at least a flyer or a poster. I recommend that to be 8.5 by 11, regular page, and a social media banner. Make sure you add that at the cover image for your Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever you are, the platform that you select. I recommend you create social media graphics, one design per social media post. If you have 2 platforms, and by the way, it's very simple. You can go to Canva, look for a template that already has the size for a Facebook post or the size for an Instagram post, and make sure that you design it there. Create that consistency. So ensure that the combination of information and graphics are all consistent between every platform that you're advertising on. Consistency is going to be key to a successful engagement of your event online. Email marketing. Send one inviting anyone to the event. If you have an email marketing list, make sure you send that over. If you don't, start building your email marketing list and send one reminder for the registration. You don't need to bombard people with different email marketing campaigns. You just need to send one inviting them and one reminding them. Event website. Okay, I want to take a second here because if you were in our last webinar, I talked a lot about how important it is to have a landing page or a website that is trackable. And that is going to be the most important part of any type of advertising online or event online or anywhere if you want to know if what you're doing is actually giving you good results. So make sure that you have a landing page for the event where you can actually provide all the information and have a link for people to register. Make sure that you not only build that landing page, but that you actually have access to the Google Analytics that is free to enable in that landing page so you can understand the navigation of people. Okay, any questions, JR, so far? Anything? You haven't stopped me yet. I'm like,
Well, I'm actually understanding what you're saying. So
yeah, this
no,
is actually
so far so good. We do have some questions coming in that we'll get to towards the end, but yeah, this is it's very beneficial. I'm actually learning a lot myself here.
Awesome. It's, it's crucial that we understand these basics. So at any point, digital marketing is very,
Well, let me just stop. You mentioned Canva.
Mhm.
Is that, can you go a little bit more into that? I mean, is that something that costs? Is it free? Is it easy to use? What is Canva?
Canva is an online platform that allows you to create designs. It is there. They have a free version. I recommend that you go for the paid version if your budget allows, because it has so much more capabilities. But Canva is amazing if you have a small team, if you don't have a designer, or in our case, because we also use Canva, we actually create brand manuals for businesses, and then we implement it in Canva so their team can then duplicate and create consistency. So the same way that, to give you an example, you're seeing my presentation today, you're seeing the consistency in colors. We're using the same purples everywhere. We did the same thing last time. We did this on Canva, right? How? By creating a manual of the brand that is included in Canva. So if you, it's a great resource to be able to build your marketing assets a little bit more, a little bit easier.
So if you're not a graphic designer or don't have anybody on staff that can actually do that, or if you're a small operation, Canva can be of assistance to you.
Absolutely.
Now, is that spelled with a C or a K?
With a C.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's
And
there is a free version of it.
There is a free version. And I will say that, for example, in the example I gave about the gala, right? They have a marketing team, but their marketing team is small. So what my team is, we created all the marketing materials that they can print, but we added them on Canva so that they can make any changes. They have an auction that is going on Saturday. Some things will change from the auction. They can go in and they can change it. You can even change it from your phone. It is very simple. And it is, I would say, one of the basic things any leader or business owner should have, because it allows you for that paperless transition into marketing materials and graphic design for your business.
So with that said, I could actually have your firm design me some stuff on Canva. Then you give it to me, then I'm not gonna have to use you anymore, and I'll just go in and change the date every year and use the same darn thing, right?
There's different ways in which we actually have helped businesses in the past. One has been, we build their brand manual and we input it in Canva and we create a couple of templates, and yeah, then their team can take over. They don't really need us to be doing it. The other one is where we manage the Canva for them. So if you are doing, for example, any sort of organic social media like we talked about here, Canva is going to be a great resource. If you have a small team, if it's just you, if you're starting your business or your business is growing, Canva is going to be a great resource to get started on the organic social media, because they actually already have pre-made templates. Now, one of the keys, and I get asked this often, is how did you create that much consistency on your feed on Instagram, for example? And that comes from a brand manual. I don't recommend brand manuals for everyone at the beginning of their business, because usually it's a little bit of an investment. Once you have that brand manual, though, you create that consistency, and consistency is key to brand awareness.
Now you call it a brand manual?
A brand manual, yes.
And what would that include?
A brand manual is a guide, like a Bible of your brand. So it'll tell you what fonts to always use. It'll tell you what colors to use. It'll tell you things like patterns. So a great example of the development of a brand manual and put in action is this slide. My team created a brand manual that guides the type of font that I'm using. So you'll see that it's always the same font. They guide the different color contrast and combinations. This purple is different than this one. And they also guide things like that make it unique to the business, right? Like, for example, the little leaves on the back, it was actually hand drawn by my team, and it makes it unique to me, and I use it everywhere consistently.
Okay. Thank you. And for those interested in maybe contacting Tatiana, Tatiana, I've worked with your team before on a couple of other projects. And I say, not only are they very professional, they're very friendly, and the customer service I've experienced with your company, Hike Digital, has just been outstanding.
Thank you. That means a lot, makes us happy. I think a beautiful part of any type of marketing strategy is having a good foundation of your brand. If you are doing an event, make sure you have that foundation in terms of colors. And I will say, I see this often. Make sure that if you have a flyer that you're pushing on social media, and then a flyer that you have physically, that they actually connect in terms of visuals. That is one of the most basic mistakes that I see happen.
And another thing that I really appreciate too is from your team, They have the patience to deal with ignorant people like me when it comes to technology. So thank you very much for that. So yeah, if you do work with a digital marketing firm, whether it be Tatiana's or somebody else, just make sure you get that good customer service and they explain to you what they're doing. Because if not, the last thing you want to do is be spending money and you still not even know why you're spending it. So your team has done an excellent job of explaining everything when I interact with them. So thank you for that. And I know that a lot of that customer service comes from the leadership that you provide.
I appreciate that. And disclaimer, JR is not being paid to say that, but I will say it is important for us, and that is part of the intention of this presentation, that anyone making a decision on how to advertise, whether it is for an event or anything, that you understand the landscape of digital marketing. Because as you can see from this presentation, even just the conversation of paid ads has different sections. You can do boosting, you can do paid advertising, or you can do organic. And so it's important that when you're moving into advertising online or building that social presence, that you understand the different tools that you have here. And that is important for us to also communicate and guide people through. So I want to show you the posting schedule that we recommend. This is actually at a minimum, we recommend you should begin ads 8 weeks before the event. And this is a minimum. And when I say ads, I mean boosted posts. This is already too late for paid advertising. We actually recommend paid advertising 90 days in advance. So if your event should not be advertised 90 days in advance, then paid advertising is not going to be a solution for that. But if you are going to be advertising within 8 weeks, let's say, that you begin doing 2 posts a week, and then every week, 1 in between, right? And then before the event, we want to make sure that you do 2 posts 1 week before, and then the week of the event, you'll see here, 3 days before the event, 1 post, 2 days before the event, 1 post, and then 1 day before the event, 1 more post. Make sure that you create these graphics to either, if you are full on registrations, communicate that. If you have some registrations open still, make sure you communicate that. And the last one, you don't want it to be too pushy on the registrations. You want it to be more of an excitement stage, right? Because now you have people attending, you want them to know about, and it's going to be very important, that last step.
Good strategy.
And one thing to note is when you're thinking here about social media graphics, 1 design per social media post, that would be here. So you need 2 designs here, 2 designs here, 2 designs here, 2 designs here, 2 and 2. And same here, 1 design, 1 design, and 1 design. You can utilize some of the designs that you've done in the past so that it creates that consistency and people recognize it. But make sure that you are making some unique value propositions during every post. I also recommend, and this is one of the mistakes I see happen often, is make sure you have the date, the time, the location, and the place where they can register. A lot of times Instagram will limit us on how we can share that. If you go to my Instagram page, you'll see a great example of the workshop we have next week. If you click in the link of my bio, the first thing that pops up is register for our workshop. So you're going to want to make sure that when you do that, you actually have that flow in place so that you get the result you're looking for. And go ahead, JR, you have a question?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
And before I finish, I just want to touch base on the most important aspect of it all, which is tracking everything. If you are having people join a call before they buy a ticket or whatever that process looks like, make sure that you are tracking that you are gathering their phone, their email, their name and last name, and their business. Make sure that you are able to understand the navigations of users when they go to your landing page or website. Make sure that you have access to that. And if you are a business owner or a leader, make sure your marketing team has access to it and that they can report you easily. If you tell them how many people came to our website today from the ad that we launched, they should be able to answer that, because today, one of the beautiful things about digital marketing is that you can know. So, So if you are not tracking the page, you are missing out on the results you can collect. And this is from our last webinar session. These are the basic things you can do on tracking. Connect to your website to analytics. I've said it over and over again. This is free. It is simple. It is a code that you add to your website. Make sure that you have that enabled. Make sure you have a call to action buttons that are being tracked. What does that mean? It means register here, call us now. Every section in your website should have a call to action. And when they click on it and an action happens, like for example, if they send you an email, there should be a thank you page after each action. Thank you pages are what we use to actually track the results, because if somebody clicks on it, but they actually didn't submit it, you're tracking the click, not the submission. So it needs to be through this thank you page, which tells you, depending on how many thank you pages or how many thank you submissions come through, you know that that person is actually clicking. Make sure to test all form submissions. This is going to be important as well, because things can break. And if you have an event, make sure that you're looking at that often. Ensure your website loads at the right speed. I was actually meeting with a client today, and their website was loading very, very low and just so slow. And so it is important, because that is one of the, first of all, that is one of the metrics in which Google determines if your website should be visible or not. And then second, people will bounce out if the website takes more than 3 seconds to load. 3 seconds.
How, Tatiana, then how do you get your website to load up faster?
There's maybe we could do a webinar about that. That's more in depth on the technicality of it, but a couple simple things. You can lower the weight of your images. So make sure that when you're downloading images into your website that they're not too heavy. You can, there's a couple of tools available. That's a whole conversation. If you are doing SEO though, your SEO team should be focusing on lowering the speed time.
Okay, so it's not a matter of just paying a little bit extra money to speed it up. There's a whole back end process that has to occur.
It is dependent on various things. Some of them have to do with things that you can fix, like the size of your images, right? The number of plugins you have enabled on your website, if you're doing any maintenance. And I want to reiterate that if you are doing SEO with your team, or if you have an SEO team, they should be fixing that for you. There's a couple of different technical aspects that go as part of at least our SEO strategy. Another thing that is really important, make sure your website is adaptable to phone. Making sure that it has the adaptability of phone is maybe one of the highest ways in which people will convert or not into a customer or registration. So make sure that it is adaptable to your phone. How do you do that? Open the link on your phone. And then we recommend that you stay away from any of these platforms. This is just external, just a heads up. Some of these different platforms will now not allow you to rank on Google. We covered that on our last webinar as well.
Yeah, if you can, Tatiana, that's important. I think people should know that if they missed the last webinar, but it is important to reiterate. Can you just go through these platforms and why you do not recommend building a website with them?
Yeah. So there's different various reasons. All of them have some limitations. The most important reason is that when you build a website, you build it so that people come in and actually contact you. The way in which you do that is showing up on platforms like Google, right? Google, for example, has a lot of limitations on these platforms because you cannot adapt them to the type of adaptability it needs to have in order to start ranking on Google. So GoDaddy, for example, is a platform that if your website is built on GoDaddy, we will not even take you as an SEO client, because we already know that we cannot get you the results you're looking for, because the limitations there are they're just too high. Then Wix, for example, is a platform where your website lives in the platform Wix. So you having it there allows for Wix to start ranking higher on Google, but it does limit you in terms of capabilities. Squarespace is not the worst one, but it also has limitations. And when I say limitations, I want to be clear that I'm referring to the types of adaptations or optimizations that our SEO team does in the backend so that your website can rank.
Okay,
now, if you want to know what your website is built on and if it's a good platform, you can just use this QR code and request a website analysis. It'll have a couple of questions, and then our team will send you a video with the analysis.
Okay, I was actually doing that a little while ago, so that QR code you have there is not just for decorations, it actually works.
You know, it works on both things. It looks cute and it also works.
Okay.
Serves two purposes. But yeah, that we definitely, one of the things that we do there is you answer a couple of questions, and then our team will send you a video audit or analysis that will tell you exactly what we're seeing in terms of how your website is built. So yeah, I think that's everything I have for today. We probably have some questions, so I'll give the mic back to you, JR.
Definitely. And oh, I like that. You can you can actually have a QR code to follow you on Instagram.
Yeah.
Mírala. Okay. All right.
And by the way, you can do QR codes on Canva. I just generated by adding the link. So again, you should definitely look into Canva.
Okay. Well, we have some questions here, Tatiana. So let's go ahead and go back to full screen and let's see if we can't get them. I know that I'm looking at a question right now, comes out of Low Rio Grande Valley. And the question is that in 2023, Facebook and Instagram made some changes, having to go through a third party. How do these changes affect small business ads?
So the first question I would have is, what changes specifically are you speaking about? Because small businesses can be affected depending on their industry that they serve. And there are changes going on all the time. So if you are worried, and this is why I also go back into look at the size of your organization and your resources. If you're doing paid advertising, you should definitely be hiring either have an expert of marketing in your team or hire a marketing agency. Because if not, I would definitely recommend going more on the organic or boosting post, since those different types of changes will affect or not your business or the client that you're serving. So in our case, we actually launched a learning and development department at Heights in the end of 2022, because we started to see that so many of our team members were where they were going through the initial development of understanding the different things of implementation and strategy, and then that there would be changes. And now Facebook worked in a different way. The algorithm changed. The way that the ads were resulting or giving the results that we were looking for were different. So we implemented exactly that.
Okay. Another question we have is, how does a small nonprofit or business or program identify quality and relevant hashtags to use for their respective posts and to reach their target to reach their target market? And is there any type of free websites or anything you can offer as far as information of how to find those relevant hashtags?
Absolutely. So there's a bunch of different resources out there. I would say relevant hashtags, or even I like to hone in on keywords, right? So go to Google Trends. Google Trends is a free platform, and you can actually identify the different trends based on keywords. So if I, for example, go in and I say, okay, I'm a private school in Dallas, I can go into Google Trends and I can identify the different variations of that keyword. A keyword is a search term, so whatever you add on Google, that people would actually be finding and the types of searches they're going for. So the search term private schools is something people are searching more in Dallas than in, let's say, Connecticut. Okay, that's the first thing that Google Trends tells me. The second thing that it tells me is that when I look for that keyword compared to Montessori schools is being searched much less than private schools. So that already tells me that my strategy should be honed in on keywords like private schools over Montessori schools, right? So a great resource, Google Trends, I would say start there.
Okay. Another question coming in is, what is the best source to create a QR code for your event?
So you can use Canva if you have a Canva, and I also love using QR generator. It is one of the things that I will say, if you are not using QR codes, you are missing out on some of the abilities of using a QR code. I actually have a banner that I take to events, and that has a QR code, and based on the event, we will build a landing page and that QR code will change. So for anyone that's wondering what I just said, yes, QR codes can actually change. So if you print something, you can actually change what the, in fact, let me give you an example. Right now we're advertising at a local magazine. And I asked the lady, how often could we change our ad? And they said, well, you can only send one. So what I did is I sent one with just a QR code. It's a test, but that QR code actually changes depending on what we're doing. So right now, if you scan that QR code, it'll take you to a landing page, but maybe tomorrow I'll change it to register for an event. So it is the ability of changing what you're advertising for in a static environment.
Okay. Another question coming to us is, if you're only doing email marketing would you still recommend only 2 emails before an event?
That's a great question. You shouldn't only be doing email marketing. I'll start there, especially if you have a social media page. Like, make sure you're posting something on your social media page. It's fairly simple. I would say that it depends on who you're targeting and what type of event you have, but most likely, yeah, maybe sending a couple more emails somewhere where you can change or combine that strategy. What I showed you guys here is a combination of this is the perfect scenario and how we help others advertise for events, assuming that they have all of the different platforms, the social media, the budget, all the different things, right?
Okay. No, that's great advice. And I definitely recommend, I mean, just email marketing. There's so many things out there. I'm not going to call this person out, Hopeton Hay, but Hopeton, join. It's the 2000s, buddy. Okay, let's go ahead. There's other things. I know that email is new to you, so come on, let's get with the program. We do have another question. Hopeton giving you a hard time there, but do have a question. Does your company, Tatiana, do you offer SEO services?
Yes, we absolutely do offer SEO services. It's actually one of our areas of expertise. Before we work with anyone, though, we do analyze to see where their website is at. And we want to understand too your goals. Like, why are you interested in SEO? And then based on that, we can determine if it's a good fit and if we're going to be able to help you get the results you're looking for.
Okay. And here's a good question. I didn't expect this, but the person's creative. They go, if you're affiliated with Tamac, is there any special deals or discounts that you'll offer?
I think we can have the answer for that after we meet internally. We haven't yet discussed, but I'm open to it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All righty. Folks, we're almost out of time. If you have any questions, further questions, please go ahead and get that QR code that she had. Would you put that QR code up one more time, Tatiana?
Oh,
can you do that so people can just kind of see that? Go ahead and get the QR code. You can do that. You can go ahead and set up an appointment or send her the information. And what did you say, Tatiana, that your team will get back with them with a video or an answer to the question?
If you're looking for an audit or analysis of your website and how it's actually right now, its presence, just for us to take a look at, make sure to use this QR code and it'll take you to a landing page where it'll just say request a video. And so if you want an analysis, you can do that. Otherwise, you can meet with me and then we'll go from there.
All right, let's go ahead and go back to full screen. Tatiana Chamorro with Tatiana Chamorro with Hype Digital out of Dallas. Thank you so much for doing this. And full disclosure, Tatiana is doing this as a volunteer. She's a member of our organization and definitely wants to help out wherever she can. So thank you for that. Once again, my name is Jared Gonzalez. I've been your moderator, and you're listening to a webinar provided by Hype Digital and Tamac. Tamac is a organization, the Texas Association of Mexican-American Chambers of Commerce, going into its 48th year of service in the great state of Texas. And I'd be remiss if I did not mention that Tamac also has a podcast. That podcast is the Latino Business Report, and you can find it at latinobusinessreport.com or anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast. We have a great episode up right now with Luis Guzman, the actor. It came out very good. So see if you can't catch that. And with that said, Tatiana, do you have anything, any final words before we close?
Make sure that you reach out to me if you're wanting any support. We are more than happy to do an analysis. If you're in Dallas and you're a female business owner or business or leader, make sure to join our workshop. And if you are a Spanish speaker, we also have a podcast called Modern Matriarchs, and it is for females that want to start their businesses. And it's more of a Spanglish type podcast. It is 100% a Spanglish. Yes. Do not text me saying that I'm only speaking Spanish or only speaking English. We are bilingual, so that's what it's
there
like.
You go. Okay, and a final reminder, if you joined us late, because I did get one more text, yes, this is going to be recorded and it'll be posted once we complete our third one next week or next time. What's the title of the next webinar, Tatiana? Our next webinar is going to be, if we had some music here for background. I believe it's building your brand or building your personal brand. Yes. And that one's going to be very exciting because we're going to talk about how to create that strong presence on social media. All right. Well, thank you very much, folks. Once again, thank you for this. This is going to be recorded. It's going to be put together. Dr. Thank you so much for taking your time, and give my best to everybody on your team and your staff, because as I said, they do an excellent job. Folks, go out there, have a great day, make some money. And remember, you can always go to our TAMAC website. That is TAMACC.org, TAMACC.org, and keep up with what's going on. Have a great day and go out there and make some money.